Shall we start, Professor?
Yeah,
we start now.
Start. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Professor.
So I cannot see the audience, I think.
Yes, I think actually that is they were not open their camera, Professor. That's why.
Right.
Yes. Shall we start, Professor?
Yes, start.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Welcome, esteemed guests and participants. It is my pleasure, and on behalf of Dr. N. Magalingam Center for Public Policy and Department of Economics, Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science, Coimbatore, we welcome you all to our monthly lecture series on fiscal and monetary policy in an analytical framework and their implications. We are honored to have Economics, you all Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts as we embark on this journey of exploration and insight into the complicated instruments that shape our economic landscape. Throughout this series, we aim to explore deep into the fundamental principles, practices, and consequences of fiscal and monetary policies, analyzing their interplay and the profound impact they have on our economies, both domestically and globally. Our esteemed team of speakers, Professor Thomas Paul, senior economist and formerly Professor of Economics and Finance at Solomon Island National University, University of South Pacific, European University of Lafayette, University of Botswana, and Madras School of Economics, and National Institute of Bank Management at Pune, and also RBI Chair Professor at Institute of Social and Economic Change, ISEC, at Bangalore. So I welcome, sir. And Professor Thomas Paul, expert in research, has done many projects funded by national and international research institutes and organizations, and has published many research articles in the field of economics and finance. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome one such leader, our Thiru Sangar Vanavarayar, sir, joint correspondent, Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science. Welcome you, sir. And also, I welcome Dr. Vijala Edwin Kennedy, Madam of our principal, always encourages. This has created a good spark and gave new insight to think differently is noteworthy. Welcome you, ma'am. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker for sharing his expertise and knowledge, and to our attendees for their active participation and engagement. Together, let us foster a collaborative environment where ideas flourish, perspectives converge, and understanding deepens. Once again, welcome you all. At the same time, one small announcement. At the end of the session, we will share the feedback link. I request every participant to fill out that for issuing an e-certificate. So now the session is hand over to Professor Thomas Paul. Welcome, sir. And now I'm going to share the PPT. Wait, sir, just.
Thank you. Can I start? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sharing that PPT. Just a minute.
Yeah, right. So I can introduce first. Thank you, Dr. Periyaswamy and Professor Dr. Shaktivel, who have invited me to this lecture series at Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science. Today I will be speaking about monetary and fiscal policy in an analytical framework. That is
visible.
Yeah, visible.
Professor, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yes, that is in the Keynesian framework and its implications. Monetary policy is basically a policy of money supply, interest rates determination, etc., by the central bank of the country. Say in India's case, it is the Reserve Bank of India. And fiscal policy is mostly managed by the government central of India, bank finance ministry. Fiscal policy basically deals with the taxation, government expenditure, and also government borrowing program. Now, as I mentioned, my framework is Keynesian economics and extension of Keynesian economics by J.R. Hicks and Harrod in the form of ISLM framework. Keynesian economics is basically a short-run income determination model that is mostly aggregate demand, employment determines income, and aggregate supply passively adjusts to whatever changes in aggregate demand, starting with the autonomous consumption and investment, and then income will be generated in a multiplier form as this thing. So this ISLM model combines goods market and money market. That is basically income, real income in the goods market and interest rates in the money market, and how they are interrelated, and also how they are simultaneously determined by aggregate demand and money supply and money demand, etc. So this is basically the framework of ISLM model. We'll go to the next slide. Next slide. First, I start with the IS curve. IS, as the word indicates, investment saving equality. At what combination of interest rate and income the saving investment equality is determined. For that, basically, there is a relation, that is investment relation. IS shows combinations of interest rates and levels of output such that planned saving equals income. Investment demand schedule. We have treated so far investment as exogenous. But some part of the investment can also depend on the rate of interest, which is generated in the money market. That is, investment, some part of the investment is a negative function of the rate of interest. What is the meaning of negative function? As the interest rate will be reduced, investment will increase. This, of course, the famous economist Keynes has explained in the context of the marginal efficiency of capital. According to Keynes, the rate of interest which is used to discount and find the present value of the streams of income from investment, that present value shows the value of investment, and for that the discount function is used by interest rate. So the higher the interest rate, discount will be more. Then that means the value of investment will be less. So here also the basic idea is that there is a negative relation between investment and rate of interest. Interest rate is high, the investment value will be less. So investment will be less. So in this equation, what we are seeing is I is equal to I bar minus BI, question number 1. I bar is autonomous component of investment, and then minus BI is the part of the investment which is negatively related to interest rate I. B is a coefficient or parameter which is relating interest rate to investment negatively. So this is what determines investment. Total investment depends on an exogenous component as well as this interest rate determined component. Go to the next slide. Next slide. This is what the IS curve. So in this any curve, x-axis and y-axis. So in the y-axis or vertical axis, interest rate and income in the x-axis. So it is a negative function. That is, IS curve is negatively sloped. That is, as interest rate is less, investment will be more and income will be more. And here also actually there is the equality of investment and saving. At a higher level of income, interest rate is low. Then how the equality between saving and investment will come through? It will come through according to Keynes through changes in the income. As income increases, people will also save more, and therefore again equality of saving and investment will come. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is that equation written. Now, as BI is a endogenous component of investment. If B is large, that is the sensitivity of investment to interest rate. That is that B. So if that B coefficient is large, a small increase in I will induce a large amount of reduction, fall in investment. If B is large, there will be large drop in investment if interest rate increases. And income Y, hence IS curve will be more flat. That is, IS curve is more flat means that coefficient, that B is very large. The sensitivity of investment to interest rate is large. A small reduction of interest rate result in a larger increase in income and investment, and therefore IS curve will be more flat and less steep. If B is large, there will be a large drop in investment if interest rate increases, and income Y, and hence the IS curve will be more flat and less steep when B is large. The IS curve is negatively sloped, reflecting the fact that drop in interest rate result in increase in investment and income. Next slide. Now this is the definition of aggregate demand, AD, written. Here it is written as C, consumption, capital C, I plus G, government expenditure, and net exports. In simple Keynesian model, this G and net exports are excluded. Then all these aggregate demand is a function of investment, basic and autonomous consumption and investment. That autonomous consumption is written here in the form of one symbol called capital A bar. Then plus, that is the consumption function is the first one. That is small c multiplied by 1 minus ty. That is disposable income determines consumption. Then the second part is minus bi, that is the last part. That is the investment. So consumption, investment, and autonomous consumption and investment all determine aggregate demand. That equation is basically expanded 3 to 4, and then basically we are now coming here to the Keynesian multiplier. That is this income y is equal to multiplier, that is alpha g multiplied by autonomous consumption and investment, that is a bar, and also investment, that is minus bi. So any increase in that autonomous consumption and also investment will result in an increase in income by a multiplier. This Keynesian multiplier increase in income is basically due to the fact that the marginal propensity to consume, that is here written as small c, marginal the coefficient of consumption with respect to income, that small c is marginal propensity to consume, and that is less than 1. So marginal propensity to consume is less than 1. And because it is less than 1, the multiplier will be greater than 1. That is what mathematically we get is, because that multiplier, this marginal propensity to consume is less than 1 over 1 minus c, that becomes greater than 1. So the multiplier value will be greater than. It means that if 100 billion investment is done, income will increase by more than 100 billion. Of course, how this multiplier is derived, it is simple algebra, which is explained in the next slide, please. Next slide. Here, actually, how that multiplier is derived, it is written. That is basically we have written together the definition of income, where the consumption is also a function of income. Therefore, we get 2y, and then we get in the equation, say 6, we get y minus c into 1 minus ty minus bi. And there we can take y as a common factor, y taking as a common factor, and then it will come as 1 minus c into 1 minus t. Small t is tax rate, into y is equal to a dash. A dash is autonomous consumption and investment. This 1 minus c into 1 minus ty is that multiplier part, and therefore a dash into 1 over 1 minus c, because what is the relation? in the equation number C, that is a multiplier relationship. So in the next equation, what we are doing is we are taking this y to one side, and that multiplier part is becoming part of a dash this thing, and therefore that multiplication will become division, and instead of dividing, it is multiplied by 1 over 1 minus c. That is the mathematics behind that. A dash multiplied by 1 over 1 minus c into 1 minus t is equal to y. So therefore multiplier is 1 over 1 minus c into 1 minus t, that is alpha g. This is a multiplier, and as we have discussed, that value is greater than 1. Next slide. Now, saving investment equality. That is actually the IS curve which we have seen, and suppose I investment is minus BI and saving is minus C dash. That is the intercept of the consumption function. In the saving, that will be negative. That is, in the consumption function, the intercept is always positive, because even if income is 0, there will be some positive consumption. And in the savings function, it is the opposite. That intercept will become negative. That is why minus C bar plus 1 minus C y, that is saving. And saving investment equality, therefore minus CI plus 1 minus CY, that is saving, that is equal to investment minus BI. And therefore y is equal to C bar minus BI divided by 1 minus C. This is simple version of the IS curve, or again saving investment equality, which shows the combination of interest rate and income, which makes savings equal to investment. 1 minus C is the marginal propensity to consume. Next slide. Next slide. In simple terms, it implies that if saving increases to maintain the same level of income and investment, interest rate will have to fall. That is the thing. That is, as income increases, savings will also increase, and therefore interest rate will have to fall. So the IS curve can also be derived geometrically. But in the IS curve equation, there are two endogenous variables, y, income and interest rate. But there is only one equation, and therefore solution is not determined unless one more equation is found out, which is the LM curve, or the money market equation. In the IS curve, we have two unknowns. Which are these two unknowns? Income and interest rate, y and I. Income and interest rate, IS curve. But there is only one equation for the IS curve, and therefore we cannot determine I and y. And therefore we need one more equation, and that is the money market curve, or LM curve. Okay, next. Next, please. What factors determine the slope of the IS curve? That is, y is equal to alpha g multiplied by a bar minus bi, where alpha g is multiplier, 1 over 1 minus c into 1 minus t, equation 5. Now this is from the equation 5. Actually, we are deriving the IS curve algebraically. And for that, what is done is, in the equation number 5, we have to take interest rate as the subject of the variable I. Taking one variable as the subject of the equation mathematically means that that has to be alone taken to the other side, left side. That is, we are taking here interest rate alone, and therefore interest rate is equal to what? So what we are going to do, when interest rate is alone taken in equation number 5a, essentially when we are taken this I as the subject of the equation, we are removing that minus b from I. And when we are removing minus b from one variable, mathematically we have to remove from all other variables. That is, we have to divide. We have to divide by minus that b. That is the thing. And therefore, this equation will become I is equal to a bar divided by b minus y. That is, y is taken to the other side, divided by alpha g into b. So that equation is very obvious. That is, I has gone to the left side and other variables have come to the right side, and therefore the sign of y from plus, it has become now negative. And then alpha g, now we see from the multiplier it has become division, denominator is divided, y divided by alpha g. That is because here that y is changed from this side to that side, and therefore y has to be divided by alpha g. And then, like all other variable, it has to be divided by b also. So that is the 5a is the equation for IS curve. I is equal to a bar divided by b minus y over alpha g multiplied by b. The smaller the b, or the sensitivity of spending to interest rate, and the smaller the multiplier, the steeper the IS curve, or it will be less flat at this thing. So that is, smaller the value of the income multiplier, that is alpha g in the equation, and also smaller the b, sensitivity of investment to interest rate, then the IS curve will be steeper. The investment and smaller the multiplier, the steeper is the IS curve. That is less flat. Thus, for a given change in y, the associated change in I will be larger the smaller the b and smaller the alpha g. The mathematical reason is obvious. That is, the denominator value alpha g and b becomes smaller, so the changes from y, so then the corresponding change in I will be greater. So the magnitude of changes in I will be greater for a given amount of changes in y. That is the, and therefore what is happening to the IS curve? That means IS curve will become steep. That is, interest rate axis, interest rate will be more changing or a less change in income. Or to put it the other way, to change in income, you will have to change a substantial amount of interest, because interest sensitivity is smaller. That is the meaning. As the slope of the IS curve depends on multiplier, fiscal policy can affect the slope. An increase in the tax rate reduces the multiplier, and it makes the IS curve steeper. So tax rate can affect the multiplier value, and multiplier affect the IS curve. Okay, next one. Next slide, please. What factors determine the position of the IS curve? The position of the IS curve is determined by the autonomous investment. An increase in autonomous investment level shift the aggregate curve up and also the IS curve to the right. This means that at each level of interest rate, now there will be more aggregate demand in terms of more investment and more income. The IS curve is a schedule of combination of interest rate combination of the interest rate and level of income such that goods market is in equilibrium. IS curve shift to the right when there is more government expenditure. So IS curve shift to the right when there is more autonomous investment. When there is the saving propensity becomes less and more investment is done, IS curve shift to the right. This thing. So when IS curve shift to the right, income increases and interest rate also increases. This. Okay, next. Now any point above and to the right of the IS curve is that of the excess supply of goods, and any point to the left of IS curve is that of excess demand for goods. That is, any point to the right of IS curve is that of excess supply of goods, because to the right of the IS curve there is no aggregate demand, there is no investment, there is no consumption component, and therefore supply is more than the demand to the right of the IS curve. Opposite is to the left of the IS curve, and to the left of the IS curve is that of excess demand for goods, because there is more investment, more consumption, etc. So to IS curve is that of any point below the IS curve is that of excess demand for goods. Okay, next. Next, please. Now, next is the money market curve or the LM curve. LM curve shows the combinations of interest rate and level of output such that the money demand equals the money supply. So now we are discussing the money market equilibrium. So in the money market equilibrium, there is demand for money and supply of money. And demand for money, L, is a function of KY. KY means Y is income. As more income is there, more demand for money. K is the parameter positively related to Y. This thing. Similarly, the L or demand for money is negatively related to I by minus H. H is the negative parameter there. So KY minus HI. K and H greater than 0, ignoring the sign. The parameter K and H reflect the sensitivity of the demand for real balance income Y and the level of interest rate. This thing. Say, for example, suppose that K is equal to 1. That means if there is a 1 increase in income, there will be a 1 increase in the demand for money. The money supply is given exogenously. Now, what about the supply of money? It is determined by the monetary authorities. The price level in ISLM analysis also assumed to be exogenously fixed. In Keynesian analysis, the price level is assumed as given from outside or exogenously determined. So M is determined by monetary authorities. This is the demand for money or L equation. Okay, next one. Next, please. Next. M dash over P dash, that is the supply of real money balances, is equal to KY minus HI, that is the demand for money. One is increasing function of income, KY, minus means negative function of interest rate. So left side is the supply of money, right side is the demand for money. That is the equation 10. Equation number 10 implies that the supply of money is equal to the demand for money when the money market is in equilibrium. Suppose the supply of money increases, then how the equilibrium process can be established. If the nominal money M bar increases, the price level should increase. Now suppose the money supply is increased, price level should increase. But in the Keynesian assumption, prices is fixed. And therefore, when money supply is increased, the right side should adjust. That is, either income should increase or interest rate should be reduced, or both should happen. Income should increase so that demand for money will increase. Interest rate should be reduced so that also demand for money increase. And therefore, the increased supply of money will be adjusted by changes in the demand for money through changes in income and interest rate. However, in ISLM analysis, we assume that the price level is exogenously given, and therefore either Y has to increase or I has to fall, or both have to change to restore equilibrium process. Next slide, please. This is the both IS curve and LM curve. LM curve is upward sloping and IS curve is downward sloping, like demand curve and supply curve. And equilibrium interest rate and equilibrium income. So LM curve is upward sloping. That's important. And IS curve is downward sloping. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now what will happen if there is an increase in the supply of money? As we have seen in the previous slide, the LM curve will shift to the right side. So we are coming back to that money market equilibrium, that is M dash or P dash is KY minus HI, equation number 10. And here also the LM curve equation. Here also little mathematics, that is, we are now going to make this in the equation number 10, I or interest rate as the subject of the equation in the equation number 10A. So I is equal to, so what is to be done mathematically? If I is equal means something is removed, isn't it? What is removed? H is removed. So we have to remove from all other variables H by dividing by all other variables by H. That is what is exactly done in equation 10A. That is, I is equal to 1 over H multiplied by KY minus M star over P bar. And this is the equation for LM curve. Equation number 10 and 10A refer to LM curve. LM schedule is positively sloped because an increase in interest rate reduces the demand for money balances, and therefore to restore the equilibrium between demand for and supply of money, real income will have to increase. As income increases, the demand for money increases and equilibrium is restored. So my LM curve is upward sloping. LM curve is upward sloping because as interest rate increases, demand for money falls, isn't it? And if demand for money falls, then something else has to increase to restore the demand for money. What is that? That is the income. Income has to increase, and therefore the demand for money equilibrium will be restored. That is why LM curve is upward sloping. Next slide. Next slide, please. That is what is written in this 10A, the LM curve equation. On the other hand, when income increases, demand for money increases, and therefore to restore equilibrium for a given supply, interest rate will have to increase. That is as income increases, demand for money increases. Then how equilibrium can be restored? That is as income increases, demand for money increases. That means interest rate should increase so that demand for money should fall. That is the idea. So that is why LM curve is upward sloping. What did it determine the slope of the LM curve? LM curve is about the increase in interest rate when real income increases because the transaction demand for money increases. How much this increase depends on K parameter and H in equation 10A. It clearly tells that if K is larger and H is smaller, the slope of the LM curve will be steeper. If H is nearly 0, then the LM curve is vertical. That is it. That is what we can see that the shape of the LM curve. Shape of the LM curve will be horizontal, or it will be flat if H is very large. That is, if a demand for interest elasticity, if that is very high, this LM curve will be horizontal. LM curve will be, or if H is very large, demand for money elasticity is infinite. Next slide, please. Next slide. If H is very large, demand for money, LM curve is horizontal, and this is known as Keynesian range or liquidity trap. In this case, the small increase in interest rate should be accompanied by a large increase in income to restore the equilibrium between demand for and supply of money. And there is an important implication for this liquidity trap. That is, at the liquidity trap, if money supply is increased, interest rate will not come down. So it will have, monetary policy will not have any effect if interest elasticity is infinite and economy is in liquidity trap. So that we can understand from this equation. That is, suppose this money supplies that is M bar divided by P bar in that equation number 10A. Suppose that is increased, then this equation tells that because of the negative sign, interest rate should come down. Interest rate should come down if money supply is increased. But interest rate will not come down if H is very large, because the effect of that function M bar or P bar, that money supply effect, will be reduced by increase in H or interest elasticity of the demand for money. Mathematically, we can look at the equation 10A and see that that is what is if H is so large, that is denominator. So if denominator increases very much, then that functional relation gets reduced. That means if money supply is increased, interest rate will not come down. This is what exactly Keynes has argued, that monetary policy will not be effective when the economy is in a liquidity trap. Next slide, please. This is what the liquidity trap. That is, LM curve is horizontal. Now we see that suppose a supply of money is increased. It's a vertical curve, suppose supply of money. Then if the LM curve is horizontal or demand for money is horizontal, interest rate will be at the same level. Interest rate will not come down. And that is what the liquidity trap, the ineffectiveness of monetary policy. Because according to Keynes, the demand for money is infinitely elastic when the economy is in a depression mode. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Equilibrium in goods and money market. What determines the slope of the LM curve? The real money supply is held constant. A change in real money supply will shift the LM curve to the right. It means that at each level of Y, the position of the LM curve, that is, LM curve is determined by money supply. If money supply is increased, LM curve will shift to the right. LM curve will shift to the right. And then what is the implication? Is that interest rate will come down, interest rate will come down and income will increase. LM curve shift to the right. That is, liquidity is more, interest rate will come down. So that is what the position of the LM curve determined by the supply of money. Next slide. Next slide. Equilibrium in goods and money market. Simultaneous equilibrium in interest rate and income will have to be such that both goods market and money market will have to be in equilibrium. This condition is satisfied at the intersection of the two curve, IS and LM curve, at IS and LM curve. Now, Keynes argued that there will be some difficulties so that the economy will not reach that full employment level, or monetary policy will not be effective to achieve full employment level. Okay, we can omit some details. Next slide, please. This is the IS curve and the LM curve. Okay, this we have seen. Next slide. Next slide. Hello. Conditions for the success of fiscal and monetary policies. For the success of fiscal policy, the interest elasticity of the demand for money should be very high, and the interest elasticity of the investment should be very less. In fact, the great economist John Maynard Keynes advocated fiscal policy to fight the Great Depression on the grounds of horizontal demand for money function liquidity trap and a vertical IS curve. Investment is not sensitive to interest rate. So Keynes has basically argued two things. One is, because of the liquidity trap, even if monetary authority tries its best, interest rate will not come down. That is point number one. Point number two is, even if interest rate comes down, investment and consumption will not increase because they are not sensitive to interest rate. That is, investment is not sensitive to interest rate. This thing, and therefore monetary policy is of no use, and therefore Keynes advocated fiscal policy that is directly shifting IS curve. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So here we are seeing that what Keynes has told, that is a horizontal LM curve and a vertical IS curve. That was in the previous slide. Just can we go back to that? This one. See, we see that LM curve is horizontal and IS curve is vertical. This is what the Keynes has described about the economy, and therefore monetary policy will not work at all. Then the fiscal policy can only work by shifting the IS curve, that is by increase the government expenditure. That was the argument of Keynes. Yeah, okay. Yes. Next slide, next slide. Next slide. In extreme, now in extreme Keynesian view is that what we have discussed. But there is another view which tells that this LM curve may not be horizontal. For example, in this graph, it is a little elastic LM curve in this graph we are seeing. And at the same time, IS curve is not vertical also, this thing. And therefore, here an equilibrium between IS curve and LM curve can be reached. But if you look at the graph carefully, you can see that achieves at below zero level only IS curve and LM curve intersect, and full employment level can be achieved only at a negative real interest rate. That is the point. Which Keynes told, no, negative real interest rate cannot be achieved, because to achieve negative real interest rate, price level should increase, but prices are fixed in Keynesian model, and Keynes says we cannot achieve negative real interest rate. Okay, go to the next, please. Yes, next slide. Keynesian ruled out the possibility of this by the assumption of given prices. Keynesian position of underemployment equilibrium means downward pressure on wages and prices. Keynes explicitly recognized that a change in real wages would affect employment by affecting the supply and demand for labor. However, he ruled out the possibility of escape on the ground that prices and wages would tend to follow pari passu, leaving real wages largely unaltered. So, what Keynes argued that wage reduction will not help in bringing about employment, because if wages are reduced, no, the idea is that wages are reduced, there will be more demand for labor, more employment will increase. But what Keynes argued is that when wages are reduced, prices also will be reduced. Prices are because of the lack of demand, prices are also falling. And because both the wages and prices are falling, real wages are not falling. Real wages are stuck up. This is the Keynes argument. And next, please. Next slide. Yeah, Keynes discussed the two other effects of changes in the level of prices and wages. The first is on the real quantity of money, and hence on the rate of interest. A lower level of prices is equivalent to higher quantity of money, and like an increase in the quantity of money will shift the LM curve to the right. The second is the effect of a lower rate of interest on the consumption function, an effect that has come to be called the Keynes effect. Lower rate of interest, the higher the capital value of streams of payment. What Keynes has argued is that the lower price level will increase the real quantity of money, because M divided by P is the real quantity of money. So if P is getting to be reduced, then real quantity of money is increased. And if real quantity of money is increased, then interest rate will come down. LM curve will shift to the right. So this is one argument. So if interest rate comes down, then it can also increase sometimes consumption, and also what Keynes called Keynes effect. That is, the lower rate of interest will increase the capital value of the streams of payment from fixed income investment receipt. From fixed income investment receipt, as interest rate falls, their real value will increase. So people will feel as if they are getting wealthy, wealth effect, and this wealth effect will boost consumption. So that is called Keynes effect. So that possibility also Keynes recognized, but on empirical ground, Keynes has ruled out such possibilities. Okay, next please. Next slide. Hence a lower level of interest rate increase the wealth of the community. The higher wealth, the less pressure to add to wealth via savings, and hence higher is the likely to be the average and marginal propensity to consume at any income. Though Keynes recognized the existence of these adjustments to he largely dismissed them on empirical ground. Sluggishness of price movement at the price of place, but inelasticity of consumption and investment. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Inelasticity of investment and elasticity of liquidity preference with respect to interest rate. Inelasticity of investment and consumption, but highly elastic demand for money function. Elasticity of liquidity preference with respect to interest rate, and inelasticity of consumption with respect to wealth were also important. A third effect of pari passu changes in prices and wages, which came to be known as Pigou effect, was not explicitly discussed by Keynes. The lower the level of prices, the higher the real value of fixed quantity of money. In principle, there is no limit to the real value of fixed nominal quantity of money. So this is called real balance effect. That is, the money value will increase when prices fall. So again, consumption, wealth increase, that possibility also Keynes empirically ruled out. Next slide. Next slide. Slide, please. No limit to the wealth of the community, and hence no limit up to the highest curve can be shifted to the right. Keynes believed in the importance of the monetary policy, importance of the monetary policy, not importance, mainly because he focused only on interest rate channel of monetary policy. During the Great Depression in 1920s and 30s, though interest rates were lower, because of the collapse of the banking system, the quantity of money became much lower, and the monetary policy was far from easy policy. Of course, this is a debate between monetarists and Keynesians. That is, the Keynes focused on interest rate. Interest rate cannot be reduced, etc. But monetarists focus on money supply. According to monetarists, Milton Friedman, etc., even during Great Depression, the money supply became very less because of the banking crisis, etc. So that is the reason the supply of money, that debate goes on. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. The size of the fiscal policy multiplier is larger. So that is what finally, as students, we have to understand the concept. So which are the concept today we have learned? The size of the fiscal policy multiplier is larger. The more interest elastic is the demand for money, the less interest elastic is the demand for investment goods. So fiscal policy will be highly successful. The size of the fiscal policy multiplier is larger. Which are the conditions? The more interest elastic is the demand for money. Number two, the less interest elastic is the demand for investment goods. Now the size of the monetary policy multiplier is larger, the less interest elastic is the demand for money. Opposite. For the success of the monetary policy, interest elasticity of the demand for money should be very less or even zero. The more interest elastic is the demand for investment goods. But for investment goods, the other way around. Because when there is a reduction in interest rate, investment should increase. So the more interest elastic is the demand for investment goods. This is for the success of the monetary policy. Next one, please. Next slide. Hello. Fiscal policy and crowding out. This is our last point. Due to the expansionary fiscal policy, more government expenditure or less taxation, the IS curve shift to the right, but it has to intersect the LM curve. And if the LM curve is less interest elastic and more steep, the new interest rate will be very high. This is because the money supply has remained unchanged, even though the fiscal expenditure has gone up. At a higher income level, the demand for money increases, and to neutralize the interest rate will have to go up. So this is another concept called fiscal policy and crowding out. Due to fiscal policy, or the IS curve is shifting, where the interest rate will remain, it also depends on the shape of the LM curve. If the LM curve is horizontal, there will not be any increase in interest rate. But if LM curve is vertical, less interest elastic, the demand for money, as IS curve is shifted to the right or fiscal expenditure increase, interest rate will increase in the economy because of the more increase in demand for money, and the supply of money has not increased, even though fiscal expenditure increased. That is the assumption. Fiscal policy and monetary policy are independent. And then the higher interest rate will crowd out the private investment. That is another concept. At a higher income level, demand for money increases, and to neutralize the interest rate will have to go up, and it will crowd out the private investment. Next slide. Next one and last. When the interest rate have gone up, it crowds out the private investment. Private investment are reduced to some extent as the increase in interest rate. This is known as crowding out process due to fiscal expansion. So this I have, of course, discussed in a little fast way the basic ISLM analytical framework for fiscal and monetary policy. Of course, we are not applied to the present world, but this is the analytical framework which will help us to understand and think about the real world, which has many other complications. However, I hope that my lecture will have enlightened you to understand some basic ideas, or to understand that a little more thoroughly the basic ideas of ISLM curve analysis and its implications for the success of monetary and fiscal policy. And with this, let me thank once again the college authorities, Professor Shaktivel and other office bearers, and also all my audience, research scholars and others who have been patient enough to listen to my lecture. Thank you. Thank you,
Professor.
Really,
yeah, really, this is wonderful explanations. The fundamentals of fiscal and monetary policy, theories, how it is role played in the macroeconomic, through this ISLM curve, like it's very helpful for us. So I hope the participants understood a lot of about this concept, like through the fiscal and monetary policy, how we analytically focus on that based on the interest rates, money supply, like that. So now I invite the participants. If you have any queries, the questions, you can ask directly to our Professor Thomas Paul, sir. Any questions? Okay. Sir, in that aspect, I have a few questions, sir. So
Yes.
I need some brief answers for that. Like the first one, like how will advancements in technology such as AI, that means the artificial intelligence and automation, shape the effectiveness and implementation of fiscal and monetary policies in the future?
Yes. Of course, all these implementation of policy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, they obviously assume lot of knowledge and also information, etc. This thing. So with the advancement of technology, this knowledge, for example, even to collect data about GDP, quarterly basis, etc. I think we are only progressing towards that direction. So I hope that with all progress in technology, computer front, and also statistics and mathematics, etc., the computations for this national income, GDP, and also other statistical surveys, etc., which are conducted by National Sample Survey, etc., that can be conducted more systematically, more efficiently, and then of course it helps the authorities to analyze, and the analyze, of course, in future whether we should depend on statistical packages or where their artificial intelligence can be used, etc. No, these are the things yet to be evolved.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir. The next one, like the next question, in light of geopolitics, tensions, and trade uncertainties, how might fiscal and monetary policies be used to foster economic resilience and reduce vulnerability to external shocks?
Oh, yes. In fact, that is very important, especially in the Indian context, very much important, because no, we were discussing these basic theories, etc. But the actual world is facing a lot of what is called exogenous shocks, geopolitical shocks, wars, and other policies like sanctions and so on. And therefore, all these prices, always price shocks are coming very frequently. And then in that context, inflation control, monetary policy, how it can be used is definitely an issue. Even fiscal policy also. About monetary policy, the issue is, in the context of the world recession, as you are aware, that many of the countries are not getting a good growth rate, or even some of the countries are in recession, like UK. UK is in recession, and China is not growing this thing. And India is able to maintain that growth, though the growth rate has not increased more than in the past, but still to maintain that growth itself is a real achievement, this thing. But in this context, the choices are, for example, when Federal Reserve System is changing the federal fund rate and interest rate, how it is going to affect monetary policy here, and also then it has importance to even our stock market, etc. This thing, that is, as I read today, interestingly, because of the delay in the reduction of US Federal Reserve interest rate, actually here our stocks have fallen. The stock market, some stocks have fallen. So the market is acting so fast, and the expectations are also working so fast. That is any effect which happening outside, as you are told, whether it is geopolitical or real monetary policy, etc. The effects will immediately come here, and how our policymakers, how they will react to that, etc. is really a great thing. This needs both knowledge and practice.
Yes, thank you, Professor. And one of our student, Kritika Magur, she asked one question regarding that. I read that question, Professor. Like, as fiscal policy is controlled by Ministry of Finance, does change in government have any effect on fiscal policy decision? How does that affect the country economy?
What is that? Change of?
Actually, she asked like regarding that the fiscal policy, it is controlled by the Ministry of Finance.
Ministry of Finance.
Does change in government have any effect on fiscal policy decision?
Yeah, definitely it will have, because
in that situations, in that circumstances, how does that affect the country economy?
It depends on what policy they are going to adopt, etc. That each government, each finance minister is free to decide his or her own policies, how, etc. This thing, and there will be some advantages, some disadvantages, etc. Say, for example, this COVID, during COVID pandemic, etc. The world over, the governments and central banks pumped a lot of money because to revive the lagging aggregate demand and also supply everything. Government gave a lot of money, cash. Say, for example, in the US, etc., most of the industrialists, employees, etc., were given cash during that COVID-19 time. But in India, we are not being given means that kind of concession, etc. Though, of course, government definitely had undertaken many measures to counter COVID-19, etc. But the type of policies which were followed were not followed by us. And then subsequently, what happened to us, there it led to inflation later on. But here, that inflation has not gone up very much. Then one point which the government has been telling is that because they have not done like that, they have shown discretion here. Now we are saved like that. It is argument. We cannot exactly know the truth, but the policies, reactions, etc. are different.
Yes, yeah, really, Professor. Thank you. Any other questions from the participant side? Yeah, I think it's really very a wonderful session, Professor. Like we understood, like from the fundamentals of that monetary policy and fiscal policy, how it is connected with that the economic theory and concepts, and how it is related to the macroeconomic models also. Like really, this is very wonderful session. I hope all the participants may get the clear understanding about that concepts. And now we have the end of the sessions now. Dear participants and well-wishers, on behalf of NM Center for Public Policy, School of Economics at Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your participation and contributions to our lecture series on fiscal and monetary policy in an analytical framework and their implications. I would like to thank Professor Thomas Paul. Your expertise and insights have been invaluable in shedding light in the intricacies of fiscal and monetary policies. Your dedication to sharing knowledge has enriched our understanding and inspired thoughtful discourse. So, and also I would like to thank joint correspondent through Shankar Vanavaraya sir and our principal, Dr. Vijala Edwin Kennedy, for their complete support and freedom to organize this series. And I thank to Professor Shaktivel sir, Academic Dean and Accreditations in Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science. And to our participants, thank you for your active engagement and thoughtful questions. And your enthusiasm has created a dynamic learning environment, fostering meaningful discussions and exchanges of ideas. And I would like to acknowledge the hard work and dedications of the all deans and all HODs of class and School of Economics faculty members, our HOD Madam Dr. Sugandhamani Ma'am, Atmaramani sir, and Titubey Madam, and the communication team, the visual communication team, and volunteers who have worked tirelessly behind the scene to ensure the success of this lecture series. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed and are deeply appreciated. So as we concluded this lecture series, let us carry forward the knowledge and insights gained, applying them to our respective fields and endeavors. So maybe continue to engage in meaningful conversations and collaborations that contribute to the advancement of economic understanding and policy making. Once again, thank you to everyone who has been a part of this journey. We look forward to future opportunities to come together and explore new frontiers of knowledge. Thank you, everyone. And one more information, I have already shared the feedback link in the chat. So please give your feedback and suggestions to further develop of this monthly lecture series. Thank you for the one and all present here and your patient listening. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.